No sooner had we discussed the Predator news than the studio rolled out the first teaser, directly hinting at the long-awaited crossover with someone else. Meanwhile, the xenomorph universe is also not asleep, because we were shown as many as 5 new varieties, and at the same time told about the continuation of Romulus. In the next few minutes, we will figure out when the alien and Predator will meet, and how it will change the canon of both franchises. Make yourself comfortable, because it will be, as always, interesting. Let's start, perhaps, with a teaser of the story of an ideal organism that comes to Earth to create various outrages here. Alien Land still manages to keep the intrigue around the series without spoiling a single plot twist. A recent promotional video shows that 5 new deadly alien creatures are being introduced into the franchise. Recall that the project developed by Noah Hawley transfers the actions to years before the events of the original Ridley Scott film. A group of soldiers investigates the consequences of an emergency landing of a spaceship on Earth, unaware that they will encounter xenomorphs and completely new forms of alien threat. We were shown not only the common features of the new creatures, but also a 3-minute video showing the growth of one of them on board the ship. Although they are shown mostly in silhouettes in the teaser, one of them looks remarkably similar to the early stages of the xenomorph from Ridley Scott's Prometheus. The prequel of 2012 showed that the supposed original version of the cult creature had several unique phases. One of them looked like a squid and grew inside its host, and the adult form could lay an embryo in a new host and lead to the birth of a xenomorph-like alien. At the same time, Scott's prequels were not officially cancelled, although they introduced chronological problems into the franchise. There were connections with them in the alien Romulus, including the return of the black liquid, and Weyland-Yutani's ongoing experiments with it. Thus, it can be assumed that Howie included elements of the prequels in the series for a reason. Considering how Ridley Scott himself praised the script and the footage, it is possible that Alien Land will have much more significance than it seemed at first glance. His temporary position allows him to fill the 20-year gap between the prequels and the original film. And perhaps they will explain to us why the organization is still so eager to experiment and explore various forms of xenomorphs. Even decades after the release of the first film, the Alien franchise does not lose its grip and continues to delight us with new projects. You can recall how the cult film universe was born by reviewing all the pictures about someone else in the Flex online cinema. There is a huge collection of films and TV series from the world's leading studios, which continues to be replenished every day. You are waiting for broadcasts of sports events from around the world and new movies that have not been released in Russian cinemas, such as Novocaine, The Master and Captain America, The New World, as well as many TV series with Netflix, HBO, Disney+, Amazon Prime and Apple+, including Andor, Some of Us and Black Mirror. Flex's own player allows you to enjoy all of this in 4K quality with 5.1 surround sound and without slowing down. Professional voice acting from Tiwishus enhances the impression of fresh content and gives a new sound to familiar tapes. And the complete absence of advertising allows you not to be distracted by annoying banners while watching. By installing the convenient Flexi app for Android and iOS, you can enjoy your favorite projects even without the internet by downloading them to your device. Follow the link in the description and subscribe to Flex with the promo code FLEX25. He will give you a discount of as much as 50% on any tariff. At the same time, a monthly subscription can be purchased for less than 100 rubles. But anyway, the fact that the series will introduce 5 new species gives it a unique advantage. The same alien Romulus presented us with a hybrid with a human at the end of the film, whereas most parts of the franchise focus on xenomorphs and face-offs. Now we are waiting for a whole bunch of variations, which will also change depending on the carrier. A voiceover says that 5 different life forms are assembled on the ship, each of which is a unique and deadly species. In addition, during the production of the series, the showrunner hinted that he already has ideas for the next seasons, and the introduction of 5 creatures may well be a natural way to continue it. In the series, the characters may encounter only some of them, while the rest will be delivered in containers for further research. But so far it is kept in the strictest secret, and the exact release date of the series is still not disclosed. In any case, Alien Land will be released this summer, and we will definitely have something to discuss. Meanwhile, the first teaser of the new Predator has already made a lot of noise. In addition to disputes about the appearance of the main alien hunter, new details of the plot were revealed. On top of everything else, the localizers have changed the name, and the upcoming film is now called The Planet of Death, not The Wasteland. The most discussed thing is, of course, the Predator's appearance, which is clearly different from anything we've seen before. At a minimum, his face was redesigned, and they worked closely with the stylist to make a memorable hairstyle. We won't even say anything about skin color, because everything is clear. The new image looks really fresh, but it's still hard for us to get rid of the idea that it has been greatly humanized. The Predator has always been a fear-inducing hunter. Making him the main character and giving him significantly more screen time, of course, is something new. But he will now be perceived in a completely different way. Although, it's hard to argue that in general, the teaser looks epic and also leaves a mountain of references. For example, the opening scene shows us the ship, where the trophy room is located. We have already seen something similar at the end of the second Predator movie. However, now on the wall, you can see the skull of a Tyrannosaurus, a human, and an alien engineer. Of course, the angles and dark lighting do not allow you to see everything in great detail, but this is undoubtedly him. In the center of the wall, a massive skull of an unknown creature also stands out, but it seems so only at first glance. The fact is that in its shape, it looks exactly like the aliens from the movie Independence Day. Of course, the tape is almost 30 years old, and not many viewers remember the Reapers in detail. But it was filmed by the same studio 20th Century Fox, which now shoots both aliens and predators. Probably, this is just an Easter egg for fans, and the studio has no plans to follow in the footsteps of Godzilla and Kongo, in order to unite all its monsters in general. Although, who knows? And here, we smoothly move on to the second point of discussion, namely the plot. Previously, it was assumed that the Predator's new ally would be a human, but now it has been confirmed that Elle Fanning will play an android. Yes, not any, but the synthesis of the Weyland-Yutani company. Thus, the teaser immediately declares that the legendary franchises exist in the same universe. Here, once again, we will make a reservation that the Alien vs. Predator trilogy is not considered canonical. And Ridley Scott has clearly proved this in his prequels. Therefore, The Planet of Death is the first film that hints at a crossover within the canon, while doing it without hesitation. The main discovery occurs when the character Elle Fanning turns out to be an android. Her eyes roll up for a moment and show the Weyland-Yutani logo, which is a characteristic feature of synthetics. Exactly the same thing we saw in Romulus when Andy's android rebooted in exactly the same way. Synthetics has been part of the Alien franchise since Ridley Scott started it over 45 years ago. But what's unclear about Fanning's character is how her model is related to other androids. We know that the action of the film takes place in the future, but it is still not clear exactly where it is in the timeline of someone else. It is possible that the heroine Fanning is the most futuristic version of synthetics. However, even this leaves the question, why is she working with a predator, and how did it turn out here? It is possible that the planet on which the film takes place is colonized by a corporation. In one of the frames, you can see a broken truck with the Weyland-Yutani logo. This means that the connections between the two franchises go beyond Android Fanning. Therefore, it is natural that the most discussed event is the appearance of a xenomorph in the film. According to previously known information, and judging by the teaser, the Predator must fight with someone who cannot be killed. It is doubtful that the authors would have placed the final boss in the first teaser, which jumps out at the very end. And besides one Yaj, other representatives of the race also flashed in the scenes. One of them even lost his limbs, if you look closely at the footage. Therefore, as promised by Fede Alvarez, at the end of the picture it may turn out that the one who cannot be killed is still a xenomorph, with whom the final battle will take place. But even if their meeting is reserved for the next films, the upcoming Predator will lay the foundations that this event is inevitable. Of interest to us, they also prepare acquaintance with different clans of predators. The main character of the picture is an outcast, who, apparently, must prove that he is a worthy hunter. At the same time, the reasons for his exile are unknown, but throughout the teaser, he wears very modest and incomplete armor. In one of the frames, we are shown a close look at its armament, which is very similar to becoming a predator from prey. In general, this is not surprising, given that the films have the same director. But it also makes it clear that both hunters most likely belong to the same clan. The fact is that in the end of Predators, different clans mainly differ in weapons and appearance details. Of course, we are not talking about the fact that we are facing the same Yoya, but there is definitely a connection between them. And the idea of the internal struggle of the clans will definitely be revealed to us. This is an interesting field for the audience, because in the films this issue was not disclosed enough. Games and comics were published on the Predator, firm which more became known about the internal hierarchy of clans, as well as the reasons and purposes of hunting. It looks like the new movie is finally going to bring part of lore to the big screens. And of course, it is impossible to pass by variations of energy swords, which we have not seen before in films. Probably, in the new picture, the Predators will not use firearms, which will balance the forces in the confrontation with a detachment of people who are also pursuing some kind of mission. Whatever it was, the upcoming Dan Trachtenberg film has stirred up fans of the franchise, not only with a new look, but also with hints of a crossover. And after him, Fede Alvarez joined in, who has long hinted that if a crossover happens, no one will know about it until the film is released in theaters. The probability that a xenomorph will appear in a new Predator is now 50-50. However, insiders say that their epical meeting will definitely happen in the sequel to Romulus. Even if the planet of death is limited to hints, the crossover will definitely be in the next Alien. We can only wait for the exit to see everything with our own eyes. In the meantime, share your impressions of the first Predator teaser in the comments. How do you like the new look and a fresh look at the hunter? And of course, what do you think about the upcoming joint film? Will this happen in the planet of death, or will they drag it out for a few more years? Well, that's all for today, friends. See you in the new videos very soon.